As always, nothing you hear on the Stripped Pod should be a substitute for personalised professional medical advice. Please always consult your clinician or other medical professional before making any changes to your diet, dosages, or healthcare plan.
Hello and welcome to The Stripped Pod, your weekly diabetes fix where we strip back the stigma for real, honest conversations about diabetes beyond the numbers. I'm Ash, a passionate diabetes advocate and founder of Strip Supply. And this is where you come
Pete. And I'm the co-host.
Yeah.
Also without a functioning pancreas. My name's Pete and I'm the founder of a brand called Not Just a Patch. I'm really happy to be here on the Stripped Pod.
Yeah. So coming up on today's pod, I am joined by guest host Pete Lomas, founder of Not Just a Patch, like he just told you. And we're going to chat about life with diabetes and what it's like building a business in the diabetes space. But honestly, who knows what we're going to talk about? Because usually I write that intro after we recorded the episode.
Are we allowed to laugh?
Oh, yeah, we can laugh as much as we want. I would prefer it if you laughed.
Okay,
it
good.
means you're having a good time.
Excellent.
But first, Pete, we are so stoked to have you join us on the Strip Pod. Unfortunately, Braden is based in Brisbane and he's a little bit wet at the moment. He's a little bit flooded. So we've got you joining us instead while Braden dries himself off, takes a little something off his plate this week. Now, Pete, we always start every episode sharing what's been the high and the low of our week. Do you want to kick us off?
For sure. Okay, so highs for me
Mhm.
and the business this week are that Not Just a Patch got Class 1 Declaration of Conformity EU registration this week, which is exciting. It's a bit of a milestone.
Yeah,
So it means we're like a registered medical device in Europe,
sounds very
which
fancy.
is kind of cool.
It's kind of really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. Also, we were at a conference in the US called Children with Diabetes, which is a big not-for-profit in the US.
Mm-hmm.
The exciting thing about that was I wasn't there.
But it all
I
happened
actually
without
had
you.
people there on my behalf, which is kind of scary and cool at the same time. We also launched a new Libre 3 and G7 patch
Oh my
in the
gosh,
last
there's
week,
so much
which is
happening
exciting.
this week.
My time in range has been 84%.
Holy
I'm
moly.
killing it.
You're nailing it.
And I mean, this is not quite this week, but worth a mention.
Yeah.
Strip Supply took on our patches,
Weed.
which like is up there.
Little
it's right
tease-
up there.
Oh, stop. I can't believe I made your highs list. I feel so special. Up next to, we've been registered as a medical device in the EU.
Yeah.
Next, we're on Strip Supply Store.
Yeah. And on that note, a big happy birthday
Oh, thank
to
you.
Strip Supply.
Yes. It is our
well
birthday
done.
this week. That's my high
You're
of the
really
week.
growing up.
I know. We're turning 3 this week.
Wow.
Tomorrow, actually. And
You look a lot
we've-
younger.
Oh, thank you. It must be all the late nights and startup stress. It's making me look youthful. But we've finally exited our terrible 2s. I don't know what they call the 3s.
I don't know either.
No. Well, you don't. Yeah, neither of us have a 3-year-old yet. So hopefully the 3s are good. Surely.
Yeah.
We've exited the terrible 2s. That's all that matters. And yeah, we're now 3 years old.
Congratulations.
absolutely
It's really
wild.
good.
Thank
Is
you.
there a cake or something?
I'm thinking about making a cake tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about making a video of me making a cake, which would be hilarious because I don't
Make it a
cook.
red cake though.
Obviously, red velvet, right? Any lows this week?
Yeah, my son Leo,
Oh,
who's 2.5 or 30 months old,
yes.
is homesick from
Aw,
daycare,
And he always gets so
which is tough.
sad.
Yeah,
when
it
they're
is
sick.
sad, and he's grumpy,
Oh,
and
I mean, me
and
too.
you can't be annoyed with him no matter how annoying he gets.
No, because like, oh, he's sick. He can't control it. I mean, I get pretty grumpy when I'm sick.
Do you?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, well, I could probably tell you off, but I can't to really tell him off.
that's true. I'll make sure to call you next time I'm sick to have a big rant and you can
Please.
be like, Ashley.
Let's do a podcast on it.
We should. We were chatting before the episode that you had like so many highs this week
Yeah.
and I had so many lows.
So many highs.
Yes, in inverted air quotes. My lows this week, I'm just having one of those weeks, and I feel like I say this at least once a month on the pod, where everything I touch just kind of turns to shit. And so that's this week at the moment. I'm currently on my 3rd laptop of the week because they keep breaking. I'm not sure what I'm doing. Like I told you on Monday, I split my pants in the pharmacy, which was hilarious and embarrassing.
How did you manage?
Luckily I pack in the back room of the pharmacy. So no
Right.
one was there when I noticed that
Yeah.
things were a bit breezy.
Yeah.
And luckily there was just like a random old towel out the back. So I just like strapped myself in an old towel, I did treat myself to an Uber home because there's no way I was going to
Smart.
jump on public transport. It was quite a bad split. Honestly, I'm impressed.
There's probably a stripped pod after hours that could delve
Exactly.
into that.
Everybody
but,
subscribe to the Strip Pod after hours to get all the goss. But a more relevant low of my week, aside from my first world problems, is the Dexcom G7 is just causing me a bit of the pain in the bum.
Man, that's rough.
As
Speaking of split pants.
yes, we've been trying to help so many people who have moved their NDSS CGM device over to the G7, but their local pharmacy doesn't have G7 for another couple of weeks. And one of the largest pharmacy suppliers in Australia, they have actually just completely cleared their out of stock date. So we don't even have a date for when G7 is going to be available, which means that it's going to be a while.
So is there a public service announcement for listeners who might be transitioning and kind of like be aware of this?
Yes, absolutely. I think that we need to be telling more people that there are delays with getting the Dexcom G7.
Yeah.
You need to call ahead with your pharmacy and double check. Ask them to check their supplier website and see if it's in stock before you go and order. Because the problem is if you go and order and then later the pharmacy finds out, you've used your allocation for the month. So we do have stock at Strip Supply and we're helping as many people as we can. But if you are really excited to order your G7, which we should be because it's a really cool piece of tech, call your pharmacy ahead because there are some pretty serious stock delays.
So the risk is that, let's say like let's say for argument's sake, I'm on my last Libre right now.
Yeah.
And then I expect my G7 to arrive to kind of help me out next week. There's a chance that might not arrive. So like I should be thinking ahead a little bit more, not like leaving a bit of a gap there in terms of like my CGM coverage.
That's right, because you're not going to be able to order your Libre in the interim because your NDSS profile is already moved to the G7. And it's really hard because with the CGM allocation through NDSS, it's super strict. So you who has a buffer? Like I'm not even sure how you would have created a buffer because you're only allowed, I calculated this the other day, particularly with the Dexcom sensors. Each sensor is worth 10 days. You get 3 sensors a month. So that's 30 days of coverage. We've got more days in the month than coverage you have for your CGM. So if every sensor works perfectly in a year, you have 360 days of coverage, but there are 365 days in the year.
I've got like some hacks for people if they want to know about hacks.
Ooh, okay. Everyone hit up Pete if you need some hacks to extend sensors.
I got like, I don't know how many, it was like 12 Libres once from a pharmacy. I told them I was going overseas.
Yeah, you've told me this.
But like, and that worked a couple of times, but they started kind of going, you're traveling a lot.
Or like, you don't seem to be going.
For a married guy with a kid.
Yeah, true. You're like, don't
don't
judge my personal life.
But if you need to use that, it's there.
And absolutely, you can always call the NDSS helpline. They are super helpful. They've got great, customer service. But I just kind of wish that people were more aware of the delays. Like I am the only person talking about delays. I haven't seen NDSS or anyone patient facing talking about delays.
Well, the good thing as well is that this was a low that you've just turned into a high.
I'm failing to see the high.
Well, you've just helped people.
Well, I hope so.
You've taken an experience and you've gone, well, I'm going to turn this experience around to be a positive for other people to help them avoid having lows and lows.
Oh, see, I need your positivity in my life, Pete. But yeah, thank you. But I can feel a rant about this brewing. If anyone heard my rant last week about the maths episode that talked about type 1 diabetes and public perception of type 1, I can feel a G7 rant coming. So keep an eye on my Instagram to see if I decide to post.
We have more maths rants as well.
Do you watch maths?
No.
Oh, I was going to say, I would be surprised. Oh, I
haven't shared I should share it.
You should, because she would know 100% what I'm talking about. You actually don't even need to share the video. Just be like, what about what Veronica said to Elliot last week? And she'll be like, I know. It just gets worse, by the way. That whole storyline has just continued and it's just, it's something else. But Pete, sometimes we bring interesting news articles to the pod as well when I'm not talking about maths and reality television that we think people should hear about. And today I'm bringing a really cool headline from the Daily Ed that reads, stem cell therapy reverses diabetes. So this story isn't new, but the positive results from last year's study means that this research has started to expand, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. So, to give you the lowdown, researchers have successfully reversed type 1 diabetes in a small group of patients using stem cell therapy. And a recent trial found that an experimental treatment, which involves reprogramming stem cells into insulin producing beta cells, helped some participants produce insulin again without needing daily injections, which is wild.
Mm.
So, obviously, this is huge because, as we know, type 1 happens when the immune system destroys these beta cells, and the idea of regenerating them could change the game entirely. And while it's still early days, only a few patients have been treated so far. Some people have gone a year so far without needing external insulin, which is wild. So, Pete, as someone living with diabetes, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think we're getting closer to a real cure, or do you see this as another kind of air quotes promising but far off development?
Well, I think we're both out of business.
Yeah. People say this to me all the time, but I don't think a cure is going to be as simple as a cure. Like what goes through your head when you look at a bowl of food? Like
When I look
do
at
you
a bowl
trust
of food,
Well, yeah, like do you trust your body to be able to produce insulin?
uh,
I feel like there's going to be a whole re-education piece for people
right.
with diabetes. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I think,
okay.
yeah, we'll need to be able to kind of re-educate people on trusting your pancreas.
Yeah, well, I think the problem will be, I guess, and we probably should go back to the question, but the problem
Yeah.
will be that we'll be making insulin. So if we keep taking insulin,
Mm-hmm.
we'll be having hypos. So our bodies will teach us very quickly
Mm.
that we're not diabetic anymore, I think.
Well, I guess
Unless I'm misunderstanding.
the point is that they don't have diabetes anymore. They
Mm.
haven't used insulin externally. They haven't injected themselves in over a
Right.
year. So
Yeah.
their body is functioning
Yeah.
as
How
normal.
bizarre.
But I also wonder if the body would remember how to do it properly. Obviously, I'm not a science or a
I'd want to wear a
techie
CGM
person.
anyway.
Well, that's it, because is your body going to just be able to snap back into it and remember, like, know how much insulin you're going to need? Or are you going to be high more often? Are you going to have
Well,
some
it wouldn't
kind
be a
of...
cure if it's not doing that.
True, you're right. And they said they haven't needed any external insulin. So I guess, wow, the body's pretty incredible. It's just like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, I remember how this works.
The thing is, right, in the community,
Hmm.
there's so much skepticism because we've heard of cures coming, and it's like an in-joke now that, oh, here's another cure. So there's a lot of skepticism. And initially when I heard about this, I also thought, yeah, right, because it's a natural reaction.
Yeah.
But I think when I reflected a bit more on it, and you think about how fast technology is moving, think about the fact that the impact that like LLMs and AI are having,
Mm-hmm.
and then you apply that to the pharmaceutical industry, and then you think about how much cash would be behind these ideas, right? Like, we're not talking about a rare disease, which can find it difficult to get investment,
Mm.
and therefore don't really get a lot of love and don't get cures and so on and so forth. I mean, we're talking about a massive impact on society and like billions and billions of dollars for pharma companies to make
Mm-hmm.
and for governments to save. So,
In ongoing healthcare, yeah.
you know, if I was a betting man, I'd be saying that there's going to be a cure, you know, based on this type of, these types of results.
Mm.
I would say we could be seeing a cure within 20 years,
Ooh.
but maybe I'm just being fooled again. Maybe it's just that same old problem that's been existing. Who knows? But fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I do think in our lifetime we'll
Mm.
see some kind of
How
a
long?
semblance of a
What's your?
cure.
What's
What's my lifetime? If I had to guess.
I'm going to give myself another 50 years.
Yeah,
What are you?
good. As you should.
You're going to
I
give
don't
yourself another 70 years, I would say.
No, I don't think I'll last that long. I'm not sure that I want to. This is getting like a philosophical conversation. I don't want to last
The
so
best
long.
kind.
I don't want to last so long that I can't enjoy my life. So I think I'm going to give myself 60
Okay.
years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Good
Yeah.
luck.
Thank you very much. To you too. May the best man win. But I think you're right. I think these studies are really promising. And at the end of the day, we have to be realistic. The business of diabetes
Yeah.
is lucrative.
Yeah.
And I think we know that diabetes isn't going away because we still
Yeah.
don't know how it happens.
Yeah.
And a cure doesn't help us understand how that happens. So the same
Yeah.
number of people are still going to be being diagnosed with diabetes.
Right. Yeah. There are some cures talked about in terms of preventing as well.
That's true. Like are there some vaccines that are being
Vaccines.
produced? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that just slows down
development.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's almost like an inevitable. Anyway, I'm
We
not
need a
sure. I
doctor
haven't
here.
read into that. We do.
We need
Yeah.
an endocrinologist.
What do you mean? Dr. Pete and Dr. Ash here to help. So let's dive into today's episode. Pete, let's start at the beginning. Not quite when you were born. We might fast forward a little bit.
Yeah.
But tell me about your diagnosis journey. When were you diagnosed with diabetes?
I was 30 years old, 30.
Mm-hmm.
I was living in London and I was training for the London Marathon. And so I was kind of skinny anyway. And what happened? My eyesight started getting blurry and I was pissing like a maniac.
Inconvenient when you're trying to run a
And
marathon.
my eyesight got so bad that I had to go see and I always had perfect eyesight. I had to go see
Right.
an optometrist and they were like, yep, you need glasses. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Excuse my language.
Doesn't usually happen. That's right. This is.
And so then I was speaking to a mate back in Australia, telling him what was happening with my symptoms. And he was a guy that, was always like the science geek. He was a smart guy. He was like the school ducks.
Ooh.
And he was like, well, either you've got rabies or diabetes.
Those are quite two ends of the
Yeah.
spectrum,
I
aren't
don't
they?
think, I mean, yeah, I wasn't too worried about rabies, but I went to Boots, which is like a big pharmacy chain over there,
Yeah.
and got like a test kit, and it was like unreadable. So whatever my reading was off the charts. I felt fine though. Like besides the eyesight and the peeing and stuff, I felt fine. So I went to my GP. She like did a test and she was like, you shouldn't even be sitting up awake in front of me.
Wow.
And I was like, well, I feel fine. She's like, you're going to the hospital right now. I was like, well, actually, I've got a really busy day at work. I'll
I've
go
got a
after
marathon-
work. She's
got a
like,
marathon straight.
either you're getting in a taxi or I'm calling an ambulance.
Wow.
So I went to the Chelsea in Westminster. They took some arterial blood, I think it's the formal way to diagnose. And they were like, yep, you got type 1. I was like, oh shit. And then they're like, don't eat honey and take insulin, and tapped me on the bum and sent me on my way.
Don't eat honey. That
Well,
was
I'm sure that was one of the takeaways. I was
Yeah, it was like
you-
super basic advice that they gave you.
Yeah. But the great thing was, it's the NHS, right? And I've got a soft spot for the NHS. Everything was free, and care was available. So, yeah, I just got on with it. That's my diagnosis story.
Wow. And did they tell you what your blood sugars ended up being at diagnosis? Do you remember?
Don't remember.
Yeah, but it was high.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing what the body can cover up.
Yeah.
Like the fact that you were quite sick.
Yeah, I guess
you
so. And
didn't
I do hear
feel
about
it.
people getting diagnosed and being in ketosis and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, how come I wasn't? I don't know what happened there. But
I think that the body is really good at like covering things up and
Yeah.
just getting on with it. And the only things it couldn't cover up apparently were your eyesight, which I'm guessing you didn't get your 20/20 vision back.
No, I did.
Oh.
Yeah, I only got these like last year.
Oh, well, that's okay.
Yeah.
Silver lining.
Yeah, you do. You get it's like a temporary thing.
Yeah.
So like I don't piss like a maniac anymore.
Oh, good.
I put on a bit of weight, and that was almost 20 years ago.
And did you end up running the London Marathon?
I did.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big achievement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is now I think about it, because I want to do another marathon, but I think about it now. I think, oh my God, with a CGM, how much easier it would be than and I was trying to remember how I actually did it with, I think I had to have someone along the sidelines. So I'd stop and test
Have a
along
test
the
kit.
way. Yeah.
Because the CGMs weren't on the NHS.
No, well,
back
that was
then.
20 years ago.
Yeah. Oh,
They didn't
yeah.
exist.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I think running a marathon now will be a lot easier.
But no, I'm a lot older, so probably a lot harder.
Yeah, maybe it'll all balance out. But you're a pretty fit guy. I think you'll be fine.
Thanks,
You're
Ed.
always running after your 2.5-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
But tell us about what's your management style now? Do you use any tech?
I'm MDI.
Mhm.
I'm on a Libre 2.
Mm-hmm.
For MDI is multiple daily injections. I just say that because I didn't even know what that was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, these acronyms that we
MDI.
use. There are some acronyms and I'm like, I don't know what it means.
Yeah.
I know what it means. I don't know what it stands for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
MDI, which I feel like I'm ancient being MDI these days. I feel like I'm kind of being left behind. But Libre 2, but I've just signed up for the G7.
Ooh.
So your
Ooh.
low earlier is a high for me
Yeah, great.
in terms of a top tip.
Yeah, happy I could help.
And what else can I tell you about it? that's kind of it, MDI. And my time in range is 85%. I said that earlier,
You
didn't
did.
I?
That's epic.
Yeah, it's
Has
good.
it?
For
Has
me,
it?
it's good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, has it always
No,
been?
like, I reckon like 3 months ago, I was like 60. A year ago, I would have been like 55.
Mm,
And I was kind of okay with that, which
mm,
is kind of a problem, being okay. I think I was okay with it because I don't know, I didn't know what was possible. I
yeah.
just thought that's, I'm not going to worry about it. But I figured something out.
Did you feel that when your time in range was 55%, did you almost feel like, I know how much effort I'm putting into my diabetes now, and I'm just not sure that I have anything in the tank to put more effort in than this?
Yeah, it was something like that. It's all behavior based, right? It's all
Mm,
psychology.
mm,
And you know what it really boils down to is like, essentially, this is my view anyway.
mm,
I'd be curious if people want to write in. Everyone should write into the strip pod because Ash needs some more emails in her inbox.
literally.
I'd love to hear everybody's advice coming into the stripped supplies inbox. But my view on this currently, it's probably going to change, is that we all have to choose to be high or low. Like, no, like a straight perfect line doesn't exist, right?
Mm,
Ultimately, we're all kind of choosing, unless we're unless we're kind of perfect pumpers. That's a good name for a business.
it is.
I mean, pumpers probably are slightly better, right? So I'm maybe talking to more the MDIers out
Mm,
there. But like, we're essentially choosing to be going high or going low, whether it's going high fast, going low fast, or going high. We're kind of, you can't really choose to be perfect. We'd love to. So I think for years, I just erred on the side of being high.
mm,
And we could probably, psychologists could probably delve into that. But I essentially started going, I need to do something different. And I think it was just slowly testing out my dosing,
mm,
and essentially choosing to kind of head low. And now I choose to head low slowly, and I use fruit to keep me safe.
mm.
So that's been the biggest change.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I'd love to hear other people's thoughts on that.
Yeah, it is hard because everyone is so different, and I feel for people because it does take mental energy though to like be like, okay, I'm going to test this and I'm going to be okay with being a bit low, and but good on you for improving, in a
Yeah.
year, improving it by 30%. That's
Yeah.
epic.
Yeah.
And I don't have the stats in front of me right now, but I'll send them to you after. I think you'd be surprised by how few people in Australia use insulin pumps.
Right.
I'm pretty sure it's like, and don't quote me on this, it's something like 50%.
Yeah, that's still high. I would see that as high still.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
and growing pretty quickly, I'd say.
yeah, true. I mean, I think 10 years ago it was 10%. So
Yeah.
it is growing quickly, but you're definitely not. Definitely
Thanks.
not Asian. You're
Thanks.
definitely not being left behind.
I like MDIs. I don't need
Mm.
another thing on my bod just yet,
Mm.
but I'll get there.
Or
I think
maybe
I'll get there.
when you don't have like a little person like clawing at you
Yeah, that's
all the
true. Actually, he
time.
does try and rip off my Libre.
Yeah, not just a little person, but also like a little furry person.
Yeah, right.
Hank.
Hank's good. He
Good
doesn't
puppy.
mess with my tech, but
Oh,
Leo
that's good.
definitely does.
Yeah, well, the personal space at 2.5 years old is not huge. But I'd love to kind of dive into, before we start chatting about your business, because I'd love to hear more about the story behind not just a patch as well.
Mm.
But I've got a couple more kind of diabetes questions I want to ask you. You've talked about kind of your mindset and things like that. Do you have any other kind of diabetes hacks or habits that you're especially proud of?
Nothing. I wouldn't say they're hacks because
Mm,
everyone probably should know them. They're all basically diet, exercise, and insulin. There's probably
the
no
basics.
the basics. I don't think I have anything that's special that I've figured out.
Mm,
I mean, I rode here today, and that makes a huge difference. I mean, it makes a huge difference, right? Exercising.
mm,
I'm still going to preach here, but not just for your levels, but your psychology. Like, you feel more positive.
mm,
And when you've got that dopamine hit, you do more, and you're
mm,
more proactive, and you're more positive. So it's kind of like it's a snowball effect, and it's kind of a snowball effect in either direction, right?
mm.
Like, if you're not active, it's easy not to be active.
Yeah.
Kind of, it's just habit, behavioral stuff. So I don't think I've got any major insights. I've been eating a lot of fruit lately,
Oh, yeah.
because of what I said earlier about like erring on the side of heading low.
Mm,
And I'm like, well, I could just have a plum or I can have some nice grapes. And I've been like
Mhm.
spending just gotta say, what am I talking about? But
But
like, I mean, I'm like enjoying going to a fruit shop and picking out nice fruit
mm,
and being like, what's in season? You know, I bought grapes that were like $18 a kilo, but they're like really ripe and they're really
they're
yummy.
cute
And
and like
I'm like, this
crispy.
is a good investment, really
Yeah.
crispy.
Mm,
And I'm like, I'll get like, you know, a few nectarines and some peaches and some plums and some
mm,
grapes. And
mm,
I'm really enjoying good fruit.
mm,
And I feel like as a diabetic, sometimes you don't eat a lot of fruit. Well, I didn't used to,
mm.
but now I found this bit of I suppose this is my hack,
Yeah.
which is, well, I'm erring on the low side and I'm using fruit to kind of balance it out.
And I think firstly, I do agree. I think investing in your health and doing that with good quality food, you know, just it's almost your self care as well. It's like you have this fruit on hand that you don't mind going low because you've got something yummy
Yeah,
to bring you back up.
totally.
I think an investment in self care wherever you can is always positive.
Yeah.
But I think what's kind of special about you, Pete, is you have a really great mindset around diabetes. You are on the side of positivity, like you are a positive person. Would you agree with me?
Ask my wife.
Yeah. But you know, whenever we've kind of hung out, like you are a positive person
Thanks,
and I think you have a great perspective of your life as well and how diabetes fits into your life. I don't know, do you have any thoughts around like how have you cultivated this positive mindset or your mindset around diabetes over the past 20 years?
Yeah, look, I think you can sort of see it as positive, but like it has a flip side to it, right? Which is that diabetes has never been like a thing that's driven me. Like it's always been like a passenger.
Mm,
You know what I mean? Like I'm like, I'm always going to enjoy my life and I'm just going to try my best with diabetes, but I'm not super pedantic about it. And that's just my psychology, I
mm,
suppose. And there's no right and wrong. Like I think people who are pedantic are probably going to live longer. You know what I mean? That's the flip side. You realize that. You realize that if you spend too many years with a time in range of like 55%, you're potentially going to die younger. And sorry to say that, guys. It's a bit of and I think maybe having a kid as
mm,
well, because you go, well, shit, like I'm an old dad. I'm 49. He's 2.5, 30
mm,
months. So you kind of go, oh, maybe I want to like tighten things up a bit.
mm,
I'm still not pedantic, but I think it is just finding hacks, finding things that work for you.
mm,
I'm loving running more and cycling more, and I'm loving eating fruit. And I think it's that snowball effect. Like once you find something that works,
mm.
you go, oh, I can do this. And it's like, but that's it really. I think the core has always been that I always committed to enjoying my life first and diabetes being second.
Mm. I love this idea of, you know, you do have someone to stick around for
Yeah.
now. You've got
Yeah.
a little person. But I love your quote that you just said just there about diabetes as a passenger in your life. I think that's really profound because you are the driver. You don't let diabetes drive you. And I think a lot of people might struggle with that mindset, feeling like diabetes takes control of their life.
Yeah.
And that's a really important mindset to have is to remember that diabetes is a passenger, but I'm
Mm.
driving the ship.
Yeah.
I love that mindset. And speaking of, you know, the flip side of positivity, we know that diabetes isn't always positive. What do you think has been the hardest part for you about diabetes? Or is there something that you have found particularly challenging?
Oh, the hardest part. I mean, like when you're at a music festival
Yeah.
and like you're at the front of the stage and you start having a hypo and you've got to like annoy your buddy or your partner and be like, hey, I'm having a hypo. Actually, this happened to me last week. I was at Carangbin here at the Horden in Sydney and I was dropping
Mm.
and I had to run outside. I mean, it wasn't a huge hassle. Those things are annoying.
It's frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, I was out hiking once here in Sydney and I was on my own and I was dropping quickly and I had to like run out of the bush and knock on someone's front door and be like, "Hey, I need some sugar."
Yeah.
And they
Imagine that
were
person's,
helpful.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, that's good.
But I think it's mainly putting other people out. Like whenever like my situation impacts someone else
Mm,
and inconveniences someone else, that's always the worst part.
mm. I'm gonna push back on here because what I'm hearing from you, like I would feel the same way, like not wanting to inconvenience other people.
Yeah.
But has anyone actually told you, wow, that was such a big inconvenience when I had to go get you gummy bears?
My wife all the time.
Oh yeah.
Shout out, Aviva. No, not really.
Do you think that's
It's just,
it's
yeah,
in your
it's a
head
story
kind
you
of a
tell
thing?
yourself. Yeah.
Exactly, but it's important to remind yourself that people love to help
Yeah.
out,
Sure.
and friends would be like, I'm so glad that you
Yeah, I
could
know.
lean on me.
I know. But when you
But
miss
it's a
like a
hard
good
when it's all the
song
time.
at the
Oh,
festival,
oh
you know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah. And you have like music is like something big for you, right? Like I think yours and my music tastes are quite different, but you're very much like music is your thing.
Yeah, I like
Would you
music.
say?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's always
So
on. Music and basketball.
what an interesting combination.
Yeah.
Mm.
I've either got music on or basketball on.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
How does your wife feel about that? The music's okay.
She's at work. I'm at home
Oh yeah,
working.
great. Yeah, yeah. So you run the house.
I do. I clean it, blah blah.
And kind of keeping down this train of mind, obviously you told us about your hike where you were by yourself and had to knock on someone's door, which is a great story, by the way. I'm so glad that it
I've got a
was.
better one.
Do you
Yeah.
like another whoopsie moment?
Yeah, massive.
Do you want to tell us?
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
So this was. It doesn't really matter what year it was, does it?
Probably not. Just tell us if it's pre or post COVID.
It's pre-COVID,
Yeah.
pre-CGM,
That's more important.
2009, I think it was. So what happened? I was living in Bondi. I was working for. Actually, I won't say I was working for. People might not like me very much. And I was driving. It was a Saturday morning. I'd had some friends over for a barbecue on the Friday the night before. And do you want this to be a long story or a short story?
I mean, you can decide.
Well, there was an interesting little sort of tidbit to the story.
Yeah, go on. We've got
One of the
time.
guys who I had over
Mm.
was a mate of mine from high school who I hadn't seen for like 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have type 1 diabetes at high school, and he did. And we all knew, right? And he'd have these hypos, and we were always like, Daniel, you should look after yourself more. And I hadn't seen him for 10 years. And I'd gotten type 1 diabetes since I'd seen him.
Wow.
Right. And he came over. We hung out that night. And I remember saying to him that night, because I was like, I'm so good at this diabetes thing. I'm never going to have like a seizure, because he used to have these like severe hypo seizures, right?
Mm.
And I said, I'm never going to have one of those. And so he leaves. I wake up the next morning, don't eat breakfast, take my long acting, get in the car to drive into the city to pick someone up. It was for a work thing. I had to pick up someone to go to a meeting. And I never made it to pick them up. I remember being like in the city around the Rocks area.
Mm.
And I remember feeling like I was having a hypo and like getting jelly beans out of my
Like pocket.
yeah. And then the next thing I know, like right where on George Street, where the police station is in the Rocks, I'm sitting on the pavement and I'm looking up, and there's like all of these members of the public. There's like ambulance and there's police. And I'm like, and I've got like a suit and tie and stuff on. And like someone hands me a juice, and I grab this juice and I like pour it all over my face and all over my shirt and tie.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently one of the cops, they had to, like, because the car was auto locking. Apparently I was having like a grand mal seizure in the car in the driver's seat, but and I don't remember this, right? So I was in, I guess whatever, I don't know what's happened mentally, but I don't remember, but I found a way to pull over right across the road from the police station. Someone's seen me having this seizure. I mean, not that I should really think of this as a claim to fame, but the police officer said to me it was the best grand mal seizure he's ever seen. They had to smash the windows to get me out of the car.
Wow.
That was scary.
Yeah.
And like that, and I think that kind of contributes a little bit to the fear of a hypo, and like tending to, I think ever since then I kind of tended to feel safer being high.
Well, yeah.
But that's my whoopsie.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank goodness that you
Oh man.
pulled over.
I mean, there was that guy in Victoria who that happened. I mean, now that we got CGMs, that should probably happen less.
Yeah.
But you know that story about that guy in Victoria?
Yeah, and he had an
crashed
accident.
into,
Yeah. That was an awful story. But Also, kismet that you just pulled up in front of a police
Oh my
station.
God. I mean, the whole thing,
It's
like the
just
whole
the
thing, like
whole
telling my
order of
mate that I
events.
was never going to
Yeah.
have one and have one the next day. It's like, I should, like, I shouldn't do that. Pride comes
Mm,
before the fall,
yeah. Yeah.
right?
Well, you learnt your lesson. And
Hopefully.
but that is a huge whoopsie moment, and yeah, thank goodness everything was okay. But you've come full circle now, and we're back to 85% in range.
Pride comes with touch wood.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, wow, what a story.
Yeah. That's not fun. Like it's not,
No,
you don't
it's
want to do
not.
that. But I mean, I think maybe it was good for me.
You needed
Maybe.
because how old would you have been?
Well,
Maybe a bit
that
like,
was, what are we now? That was, so yeah, I would have been like late 30s,
yeah,
36, 37.
maybe like, yeah, like I got this, I can do anything. Bit
Yeah,
invincible.
a bit of that, I think. Yeah.
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 Well, what did you actually used to do before you started Not Just a
Um,
Patch? I've never asked you this.
so my undergrad was as a health information manager. I studied at
Oh,
QUT.
what is that?
It was a Bachelor of Business when I did it. It's now a Bachelor of Science.
Mm,
So basically when you go, now you see health information managers all over, right? Like in
mm,
health tech companies and like
yeah,
doing all sorts of interesting things because health information at its
mm,
core is like everywhere.
yeah.
And there's work for people who understand it. But like one of the main subjects we did was coding, clinical coding. So basically, when a patient comes into hospital
Mm,
and their medical record is documented, that medical record goes down to the medical record dungeon.
mm,
And there are people like me, and there's also specialized clinical coders
mm-hmm,
who used to have back in the day. Like I started work just when emails were coming out. You would sit there with your chart and
mm-hmm,
your ICD-10 books,
mm-hmm,
which were these clinical classification books, and you would look at the chart and you would look to assign like, what's the principal diagnosis here, and you'd assign a code to that.
mm-hmm.
And what's the principal procedure, and you'd assign a code, and then you'd capture all of the comorbidities and complications. So essentially what you're trying to do is capture that entire patient episode
Mm-hmm.
with codes. And those codes back then weren't so much used for funding. Now they're crucial for funding
Mm-hmm.
because of the way the health system is funded. But they create things called DRGs, diagnosis related groups. I can't believe I remember all this shit.
I'm sounding so scientific.
And so anyway, I hated this stuff. Like I used to fall asleep at my desk because it wasn't for me. So, but so a health information manager used to do that, and used to basically manage anything to do with health information coming out of a hospital or anywhere in the world, anywhere in any kind of system.
And it's almost like finding patterns and trends and
Well,
like
it's about data. It's about
data.
data.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, now that data is so crucial, right? Like you can
Yeah.
look at all of every single patient admission,
Mm,
because this was actually the last job that I had, kind of came full circle because I was a healthcare consultant and I would go into like hospitals here in Sydney.
mm,
The chief exec would call me up and be like, Pete, I'm having some problems with my endocrinology team.
mm,
I think that they're like lazy and I don't know what they're doing. Can you come in? And I could come in and I could look at what was happening in a department. And I could be like, yeah, this doctor,
mm,
his average length of stay is like double what the national average is.
mm.
So, and he has more complications. So there's something happening there. So, and that the benchmarking data really comes from the capture at its core of every patient episode,
Mm,
because the capture of every patient episode allows you to basically look at whole system data, look at like all of the averages nationally for length of stay so you could look at safety,
mm-hmm,
so hospital acquired complications,
mm-hmm,
efficiency, so length of stay, and quality, right? So outcome type data.
mm,
And you're really able to kind of compare and be like, well, when you like average out statistically, and you normalize all of the data, you could actually see whether a doctor or a department or a hospital was performing well. And so that's what I did. And in between that, I actually worked in the pharmaceutical industry, but I worked in, and I say this I clarify this because I know there's a lot of anti-pharma sentiment out there, particularly in the diabetes community. I always worked in, almost always, specialized medicine. So like transplant, I worked in for ages. Psychiatry, infectious diseases, neurology, like specialized medicine, which makes me feel better about myself. It probably shouldn't, because I know that pharma has a reputation, and I know there's good and bad, like there is in any industry.
Well, that's the thing. And it's important.
That was a rant, wasn't it?
Well, it was. I don't think it was a rant. It was actually really interesting. I hadn't realized how long you'd been in healthcare for.
Yeah, like 30 years.
Like always.
Yeah, like always.
Yeah.
Pretty much. No, I did a brief stint in finance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't like that.
No.
That would be the thing that would shorten your life. But that kind of brings us through to now. So I know I'm celebrating my 3rd birthday with Strips Pie this week, but Not Just a Patch is 6 years old, right?
Yeah, 16. We actually turned 6. Well, what, do you say the date from when you incorporated, or from when you had your first sale, or how do you?
Mine is from when we shipped our first box.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So mine is in August then.
Oh,
Yeah.
6th birthday's in August.
Do you remember where you were when you shipped your first box?
I don't remember, but I remember because we received the first box. Like my partner at the time was the first. Well, he wasn't the first customer, but that's another story. But that was the first box.
Version.
Yeah, that was the first box that was kind of shipped, and the first time that I'd actually seen the box, because I was based in Brisbane.
Right.
This pharmacy was in Sydney. I just got my packaging sent down there and I hadn't actually seen it yet. My big red boxes. So I have a video of me opening that. I didn't let him open it, obviously. I had to open it, even though it wasn't addressed to me. So I do have a video of me opening
That's against
that.
the law, you know.
Well, someone take me to court. Have I incriminated myself on a podcast?
Too late.
But I don't remember where I was. I wish I did.
Yeah, right.
Do you remember?
I do.
Yeah. Well, your memory is.
No, it's terrible.
Do you think?
Bad.
Do you know how many stories you've told on this so
I know.
far?
I don't know where it's coming from.
Is it your long-term memory?
I don't know what
maybe?
it is. It's bizarre. It's coming out of me. I was in the Cotswolds.
In the UK?
Yeah.
Oh.
For a wedding.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And you were just like.
It was
on
a
your
few
phone.
summers ago, and it was summer at the time, because we were going to Glastonbury afterwards. And it was because I remember, because it was on Amazon USA where we had our first sale.
Oh, that's cool.
And I remember we'd had what's the website running? I don't remember if the website was live, but we had the account, the Amazon USA account, running for a couple of days maybe, and we were waiting for the first sale to come. And I woke up and it was the morning of the wedding, and we had a first sale. It was my wife, one of my wife's best friends. She was bridesmaid. And great wedding, great summer.
Great day.
Yeah, great day.
Oh, what a good feeling.
Yeah.
Let's rewind a little bit, because I feel like I've jumped ahead. But you run a company called Not Just a Patch, and I want to hear more about this, because we love Not Just a Patch. Not just because we're now one of your suppliers, but because I've always been a huge fan in what you're doing and the reasons behind what you do. So in your words, you say that this business has always been about more than just selling a patch. So tell me, what is Not Just a Patch, and why is it not just a patch?
God, I hate this question.
Like you did it to yourself.
I don't really. I mean, I think people advised me against the name.
Yeah.
Like my branding guy, he was like, "You sure?"
It's so catchy though.
Good. I'm glad you like it.
I love a business, sorry, side note. I love a business that I can have in an acronym. I don't know, something
NJAP.
about it. Yeah.
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 Yeah, it came from not like wanting to do something that wasn't just about making $1. Kind of needing to have some purpose and some meaning behind the business, because it's not fun, is it? Just kind of wanting having a purpose, really. That's what it was about. And that's where it came from. I don't really know. I mean, yeah, it doesn't help with like SEO, and it doesn't help with digital marketing sometimes, but it's growing on me.
Yeah, no, I do feel the same way. I was like, I should have put the word diabetes in my business name somewhere.
Yeah.
But it's such a convoluted word. Like, it's so many syllables.
Look, we're
It's not
in a
catchy.
good place as well. So
Yeah.
there's no it's worked.
And so Not Just a Patch, if this isn't clear, sells patches.
CGM and pump patches.
Yes. So if you're finding that your sensors or your infusion sites are not sticking to your skin for long enough for the full wear of the device, your patches help with that.
Yeah. So where it came from was I was wearing a Libre and I was doing a bit of yoga. In fact, the name for the business came to me in a yoga class, FYI. And I was wearing a Libre and I was doing yoga and I was doing a bit of ocean swimming, and like I couldn't be in the pool or in the ocean for like half an hour swimming without the CGM getting loose. So I had to wear something on it.
Mm.
But even if I wasn't that active, I was finding that like by like day whatever 8, for example, that the edges would start lifting up.
Mm.
And like I would spend the rest of, the 6 days, to do some quick maths there.
Yeah.
The rest of the 6 days, I'd like wake up in the morning and I'd be like, how much is that edge up on my CGM?
Mm.
And then I'd sort of, I'd just be like, and it's like, I didn't need that. I don't need to be anxious about that, but I was paying, it was out of pocket then, right? So it was also, it's almost about $100 a pop every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's not cheap.
It's not cheap,
Um,
particularly back then as well.
Back
Like I think
then-
we forget.
yeah. And so I was making my own patches. And then what happened was I hated working for someone and I was a terrible employee. So I was constantly thinking about how I could do my own thing. And I was listening to a Tim Ferriss podcast,
Mm.
and he was talking to 2 German students who made this back support solution because they were sitting at their laptops all the time. Their back got sore and they didn't like what was on the market.
Mm.
And they kind of came up with this solution. And one of the messages from that was, if there's a problem you're solving for yourself, maybe you can solve it for other people. And I was like, I'm like, what problems am I solving? I
Like,
was
what
like,
problems do I
"Oh."
have? And you
I'm
had
like,
this
oh
big.
my God. I'm like, oh my God. And I did a bit of Googling
Mm.
and saw that like there was 1 or 2 other brands in the US on the market at the time,
Mm.
but still, 6 years ago, still pretty early days. And the good thing about that was like, it was an independent original thought.
Mm.
Like, it wasn't like not if I saw a market and went, I need to have a piece of that market. I saw a problem and I was like, I need to fix that problem.
Yeah, you're like, I'm the right person to fix this problem.
Yeah. And I hated working for someone as well. So I already said
Yeah,
that, didn't I?
I feel that. You're just preaching to the converted.
Yeah.
What do they say? I too was a bad employee at one point.
We can talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the best way to start a business is experiencing a problem, a very unique problem as
Yeah.
well.
Was that a similar?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, the guy that I was dating would run out of his infusion sets almost every month.
Mm.
And I couldn't believe how difficult it was to get them from the pharmacy.
Yeah.
Like, you mean you have to walk in, order them, leave, and then come back and hope that they'd ordered them correctly?
Yep.
So, yeah, I just got frustrated. I couldn't believe you couldn't buy them online. And I thought, there's no way that this doesn't exist. Like, surely not.
I'm a latecomer to Strip Supply.
Oh, I mean,
Like,
I wasn't going to out you.
I'm like, what am I doing going into pharmacies?
Honestly,
Like, why do I have to go and talk to people and get in the car
It's-
and drive down the street? And
Yeah. I'm a big believer. I don't think that the level of care that you are receiving going into the pharmacy is any
Yeah.
different to the level of care you're receiving from us. Do you want to do a live glucose check? Is
no,
that what you're
I
doing?
don't.
I know. You still good?
I'm good.
I don't-
Because
I don't
wrote
have
in
any
here, I made
plums.
sure I was like, the last thing you want is, and I'm going to ride home as well, right? So
Yeah.
the last thing you want is, I'll show people where I'm at. Do I do this? Do I show them on the camera?
Yeah, show them on the camera. I think it's always interesting to know.
I mean, I was telling people how good I was earlier,
But you just said you're about to
but
ride half an
to
hour.
prove my point, there's my time in range, which says 84%,
Oh, it's all
and that's
green
7
too.
days.
I love that.
And like it's 83 at 14 days, it's 83 at 30 days, and it's 78 for 90 days.
Oh, that's so epic.
So I mean, today it's just because I wrote in here, but it's okay. No judgment, right?
It's not the days that matter though, right? It's the accumulation of
Correct,
days.
yeah.
Yeah, it's the long term.
Correct.
And okay, speaking of diabetes, how do you think diabetes has shaped the way that you approach business? Or does it get in the way? Like, how do you manage diabetes and a business?
I mean, I'm sitting at home on my desk, so like I have my Libre app just open, like while I'm sitting there. I have the basketball on. I have my Libre app on,
You got
and then I
the
have
big
like
screen,
I have-
the little screen,
Yeah.
the medium sized screen.
I know, like I guess I don't have that many excuses. Like being in and around the community, I'm aware of, tips and tricks.
Mm,
So it gives me less excuses to fail.
mm.
Not that you should really call it failing, but yeah, I don't. Yeah,
Mm.
was that answer your question?
No, it does. And I think that the word failing needs a rebrand because I actually love failing. I think failing proves that you've tried something and you've learned something, but it has
Yeah.
this negative connotation.
Yeah. So maybe you should change the intro highs and lows to highs and lessons.
Oh yeah, maybe. I feel like maybe that's a little too positive for us though. Like I don't, am I sugarcoating my life? I don't know. But what was the biggest challenge in turning an idea into a real product? I honestly, because we don't have any products with Strip Supply. I'm just a middleman, and I wouldn't even know where to start
Yeah,
to
right.
build a product.
The biggest challenge is that like I'm not that good at anything. Like I'm kind of like I'm not great at anything. I'm kind of like
What do they call it? Like a jack of all trades.
yeah, maybe a little bit, but like I guess I failed quite a lot with lots of things
Hmm.
in terms of like product design and quality and all sorts of things. What was the question again?
What was the biggest challenge
Biggest
in
challenge.
in
Yeah, I think
from
it's just
having the
mental,
idea?
really. Well,
Mm,
I mean, I think I was working full time
mm,
as a healthcare consultant and then doing this after hours.
mm.
So that was, I'd be working until 1, 2 in the morning every night
Jeez.
and then getting up and going to work.
Mm,
But like I think I had so much enthusiasm for it. I needed to, right? Like in
mm,
order to get to this point,
and-
because it's also like it was a niche market back then.
mm,
There weren't that many CGM. Like in Australia, there would have been like, God, 10,000 or something, right?
mm.
Small market.
Mm.
So like you got to figure out, well, okay, if I can't just sell it in Australia, I've got to sell it globally. And then how do you do that?
Yeah,
And
that's
there's
a
that's
huge.
a can of worms.
Yeah, and Amazon and all that.
Amazon, I mean, global distribution, logistics,
Mm.
the whole e-commerce space. Yeah.
But I mean, you've come so far in 6 years. Do you want
Yeah.
to tell me about like where you are now? There are some particularly exciting suppliers that
Yeah. I mean,
you
probably the
work with.
biggest success we've had. Well, look, we sell from the website
Mm-hmm.
to like 65 countries,
Mm-hmm.
but there's probably like 10 that really, are the bulk of that.
Yeah.
We've got like maybe 20 distributors
Mm.
globally. We're in like 5,000 Walgreens stores. We're in
I
like
think that's so
2,000
cool.
CVS stores.
Mm.
We have new distributors kind of inquiring all the time,
Mm.
which is fun and exciting. It keeps me on my toes.
Mm.
I keep wondering like when the fun's going to end. There's all that kind of fear that comes with I suppose it's success. It has been pretty successful.
I'd back that
Um,
up. I think it has. I think it definitely has.
yeah, I'm pretty happy with it when I let myself be. But ultimately, and I had this early on, right,
Mm.
where I'd have some like dark days, like going, what am I doing? Like I'm, burning all this cash. Is this going to work? Is it worth it?
Mm.
And then I'd like remember like why we were doing this. And like it ultimately always comes back to this belief in like we can make better patches. Like if we just keep working on making better patches,
Mm.
people will buy them and you will continue to do okay.
Mm.
And that's probably for me been the secret, has been like just forget about like the P&L and just be like, we just want to make customers happy.
Mm-hmm.
And so just kind of passionate about like, feedback and listening to customers and making it and trying to do better by customers ultimately.
But it's more than just a patch, right? Like you're doing more than selling patches. What you're doing is making people's lives easier, giving them one less thing to think about.
Yeah.
They know that sensor, that site is going to last the full stretch.
Yeah.
They know that they're not going to need to be out of pocket to replace something.
Yeah. They don't have to like have the anxiety.
The worry.
Yeah. It's like, it's just like one less thing to worry about.
Exactly. Because you guys have more than enough to worry about. It's not like you're going to run out of things to worry about,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm interested, what's next for Not Just a Patch?
Global domination.
Yeah, great. I was hoping you'd say that. We're going to start with Strip Supply.
We want to be
and then
Trump's
we're gonna...
right-hand man.
Oh, now. You'll get us cancelled with that one.
What's next? Look, it's really back to what I said. It's like continuing to make better patches. Like think about the materials, think about the experience, just make people feel better. Like continue to research new materials and continue to listen to customers. Like we're just bringing out, we're starting to expand our Libre 3 and G7 range. They've been in the G7, they've been in the US for like a year now. So we're just kind of building that range out. Maybe some other accessories. We do have some socks and some like cooling cases that are taking a bit of a back seat. So maybe I can think about other accessories. But yeah, ultimately the core business is patches. So we'll just keep like figuring out ways. And I think there's also a number of new CGMs coming onto the market. Probably like 25 odd CGMs out there that are not on the market yet. So,
Yeah, wow.
you know, the market's relatively early days. If you think about type 2s, which is 10 times the size of the market, and if you think about just metabolic health for your everyday biohacker who wants to know a bit about what's happening with their glucose, and then if you think about other like ketone measuring devices that are coming on and just biohacking and devices, I mean, we are becoming like part machine. So like, not that I'm thinking too much about that, but you know, over the next 10 to 20 years, we're going to be all wearing, well, there's a possibility that we're all going to be wearing something
Yeah,
because it's going to
true.
tell us something about our inner state. And that's something you might need a patch. So, you know,
There's something to be said. I mean, I think you're right. I think world domination is definitely possible. I think it's definitely on the horizon. I can't see not just a patch going anywhere else. But another rant that I can feel brewing now is, aside from all the ads that I've been getting for me to buy a CGM, but
do it.
just our so I can buy a patch. Just our reliance on data. I think you're right. I love the idea of what you said. I don't love the idea, but I think it was really insightful that we are going to become part machine, because I think with all I'm wearing, a health tracker right now, and some people wear multiple health trackers that'll tell you different things. We're becoming obsessed with, instead of just understanding how we're feeling and being in touch with our body, like we need to see the numbers.
Yeah.
Which I am clearly.
Well, I think, I mean, that's one thing I say, that people with type 1 diabetes have a better relationship with their body because you know what foods do on a glucose level anyway.
You know how your body
So
works.
you're like, you have a better idea of what's happening with your metabolism, like with exercise, with diet, with insulin. You understand it a little bit better.
You're the OG biohackers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we finish every podcast with a question, and that is a question I'm about to ask you. What is one piece of advice, a thought, or an insight that you would tell someone who has just been diagnosed with diabetes?
Oh, yeah. What's that Bob Marley song? Everything is going to be okay.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I wish
Probably
I
that.
could.
Everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's scary,
Mm,
particularly for children, adolescents, and parents.
mm,
Really scary. But with technology, you're lucky. People hate it when I say that. I've had because we've got a blog, and I've remember writing. Used to write the content for the blog myself. And I remember one of the blogs writing something about like how lucky we are as type 1s to have technology. And I remember those people writing and being like, dare you say we're lucky? Anyway, I think that's, everything's going to be okay. It's stressful, but you figure it out. And I mean, make lemons out of lemonade. I guess that's what I did with the business.
Make lemonade out of lemons.
What did I say?
Make lemons out of lemonade.
Don't make lemons out of lemonade. I mean, if you want to make lemons out of lemonade, do so. Maybe there's a market for that.
Maybe, but you're right. You've turned something that is negative into a
pays the
positive.
mortgage.
Yeah. Well, yeah, good. Oh, I love that. I love that advice. Everything is going to be okay. The first song that came to my
Can you
mind.
sing it though, with a bit of a ruster?
No, I can't, because the only song that's in my head now is "Don't Worry, Be Happy."
Don't worry.
Oh,
That's a good one.
be happy.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Don't worry, be happy. No, I won't do that.
You.
Well, luckily we've gotten to the point in the episode where I start singing, which means that's all we've got time
Yeah,
for today.
that's a good segue to the end.
Are you going to help me with this outro?
I don't know.
Have you got it up in front of you? No, you don't.
No.
Well, that's okay. I'll tell you what to say.
Okay.
So there's a part where I say, that's all we've got time for today. Yeah. As always, this episode was brought to you by Strip Supply.
Yep.
And then Brayden usually says, the Strip Pod will be back in your ears next week. Until then, tell diabetes to get pricked.
The Strip Pod will be back in your ears next week. And until then, tell diabetes to get pricked.
Perfect. You nailed it. I am so stoked, Pete.
Yeah, good to be here, Ash. Thanks for inviting me.
And we have Not Just a Patch on the Strip store now. It will be on the Strip Supply store this week.
Yes.
And not only that,
it gets delivered.
It gets delivered.
I guess we deliver too, but you deliver. Your boxes are nicer.
Well,
and you get other stuff.
Well, you don't need to order them.
No, you can get your CGM and your patch. Makes a perfect partner.
And not only that, thanks to you, Braden is starting a very special series next week because he's had some awful issues with having his Guardian sensor sticking to his skin. And you've offered some samples for him to try out, Not Just a Patch. And so starting next week, Braden is starting a little mini series where he's testing a whole bunch of different patches and he's going to tell us which one is the best.
No pressure, Braden.
Are you nervous? No. No, I'm really, really excited. So you'll hear more about that next week. But aside from that, Pete, thanks for coming on. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be here. Love the SS play.
Strip Supply acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this podcast on. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging.